Here are my memories of the Patronal Festival in July 2017. I was a church warden at the time, so I was involved in the planning and the execution of the event. It was the 900th anniversary of St Edith's Church and the 1,000 years since there was worship on the site, a building of worship on the site. And also was the official opening of the new Trinity Room, toilet and kitchen. Perhaps I should tell you a bit about how we used to manage before the Trinity Room was built. The kitchen we used to manage with a curtained off area in the northwest of the church. It was screened off with a curtain that Judith Weatherall made. I remember Judith making it. We had a sink with a cold water tap, and we had a drain, so that was useful. We had a cupboard that we kept cups and glasses, etc. in, and a trestle table. And we also had a fridge, a second-hand fridge that somebody donated when they were upgrading their fridge at home. The toilet facilities was just a porta potty in what is now the broom cupboard. So it wasn't ideal, and so you had to be desperate really before you went in there. In the early 2000s, the heating boiler failed, and it was on a Monday, I think, before a Tuesday Toddler's Praise. And this was a new service we'd started a few months before, and it was getting quite popular. I remember that Pam Baxter used to run it, and so we didn't want to cancel the service, so we thought, oh, what can we do? And Chris Garrard, who was the rector at the time, she said, well, we've got a tent at home. Perhaps we could erect that in the church and put an electric heater in it, and we could go inside that. So that's what we did. And it worked out well, except it was a bit of a crush because we'd got pushchairs and babies and mothers and toddlers. And but we'd proved that it worked well. That was a good way of heating a small area in the church. So the PCC bought a larger tent. It was a marquee, a plastic marquee, and it had a zipped up door so that when everybody was inside, we could zip it up and we could have an electric fan heater on. And that worked well. And I remember John Whittington put some lights inside in the ceiling, so that was nice and light. So that was ideal, and we used that for quite a few years before the meeting room was built. Before we had the Trinity Room, it had been a dream, I suppose, of the PCC to have a toilet and a kitchen, but it just seemed beyond our means. It was thousands of pounds and we just couldn't raise the money. And it had also been suggested that we could have a meeting room in the church, and that seemed desirable as well, but no matter how many fundraising events we held, we would never raise enough money. But then we found out that you could get grants and funding if you put in a good claim. So that seemed a very good thing. And then along came Patricia Barnett, who's offered to look into it for us. And so she did. In 2016, she put a lot of hours in, I think, sourcing and successfully applying for grants. And she got grants from a lot of different companies. I can remember a few of them. One was English Heritage, and Coventry and Warwickshire Historic Churches, and there was WREN, which was an acronym for Waste Recycling Environmental. And there was another one, a big one, from a company called Garfield West. Soon decided that calling the new building the meeting room and kitchen, we'd need to shorten it. So the PCC held a competition whereby parishioners or any local people could suggest a name for the new room. And we had a few different ideas, but the one the PCC chose was one submitted by Sylvia Whittington, and she called it the Trinity Room. She said she chose it because Trinity College Cambridge is one of the church patrons, and also there were 3 sections to the new build. There was the kitchen, the toilets, and the meeting room. So that was 3 in 1. So that was what it was called after that. Before the festival, the week before the festival, volunteers cleaned the church because it was in a bit of a mess after the builders had been in. And so a group got together and we swept and mopped the floors, and we dusted and cleaned the pews, and the brasses were cleaned, and some lovely flower decorations were created by volunteers, and so everywhere looked spick and span. And we were mixed. We had mixed feelings about it. We were thrilled with the Trinity Room and how easy it was going to be to host an event with the new facilities, but we also were a bit worried about how many people were going to come. Would it be popular? So it was rather mixed. On the Saturday night, was it the 15th? The 15th of July, we had a concert in church. We had some choirs. We had the Revel School Choir, and we had a local choir called the Villages Choir that were made up of local people. And we had an organist, and we had a trumpeter who gave a recital. And it was a lovely evening. We also had a few people giving memoirs. There was Liz West, Bill Woolliscroft, Tony Gillies, Peter Wallace, Wendy Busfield, and I think that was them all. And they gave us their memories of, a bit like this recording, about their memoirs of different events that had happened at church. On the Sunday morning, we had a special group, Revel group service, a Holy Communion, which was led by Jonathan Fox, who was our vicar at the time. We had several members of the church taking part. They would either read lessons, or there was a special dedication prayer, and that was split up into sentences that several people said a sentence of the prayer when the Trinity Room was being dedicated. And 2 Tim Cockle, the area dean, came and he gave a sermon. And it was a lovely service, and afterwards we had refreshments and everybody socialised. In the afternoon we had the open afternoon, and there were several activities that people could take part in. It went from 2 o'clock till 4, and there was bell ringing, practices. You could have a go at bell ring, I think that was what it was termed. People could go up to the tower and have a look from the top. There was some new booklets that we'd had published, giving information about the church, the history of the church, and it gave several bits of the window, talking about the windows and things like that. And there was a children's trail that children could take part in. There was the usual tea and cakes in the new room, and we'd put up some little tables with nice tablecloths on, and little flower arrangement in the middle that people could sit at to drink their tea. And it was very nice. There was launching of the Heritage Tile project, which was organised by Leslie French from Pailton, whereby everybody in the local community had the opportunity to decorate a 4-inch pottery tile. So some people did that on that afternoon, but there were also other opportunities to do that. So that in the end, I think we had about 100 tiles, which were later put on, several on a board, and hung up in various places in the church. Also on the afternoon, I think we had some speeches, and one was thank you speeches. One was given by Jonathan Fox, the rector. Another was given by Bill Wooliscroft, who was the chairman of the PCC at the time. And I gave one as a church warden. So I remember being very nervous about this, but I think it was all right on the day. It was it was very nice, and everybody seemed to enjoy it, and it was lovely to have so many people in church all enjoying themselves. So on the whole, the festival was a wonderful occasion, and it was a lovely weekend.